Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
And so, boy, this was a long time coming, huh?
It was.
Good grief.
It was, just between schedules and all sorts of things. But
You're a
it's
busy
good.
person.
Well,
Oh, so you think you're not a busy person? We've changed 4 times so far.
I think I am a busy person, but...
Yeah. So, we were here today to talk about the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts?
On the Arts.
On the Arts, okay. And why don't you tell us all about, give us your name and your function there.
Sure.
And then we'll get into a little bit about the mission statement and all that stuff.
Absolutely, sure. So my name is Ginnie Lupi, and I'm the director of the New Hampshire State Council on the
Yes,
Arts.
we get the big dogs. So, as a director, so let's start first with what's kind of the mission statement for the council?
So the Arts Council is a state agency, and I think that's very important to say up front. We are the Division of the Arts in the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources for the state of New Hampshire. And so we are one of 5 divisions in that department. We're the smallest of the divisions. The other divisions are Parks and Rec, Forests and Lands, Historical Resources, the State Library and the Library System, and then the Arts Council.
So what is... Go ahead.
And so every state in the country and in all U.S. territories have a state agency that is dedicated to the preservation, promotion, and sustainability of the arts.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it mandated by law that every state have? Is that a federal thing?
It's not federally mandated, but soon after the National Endowment for the Arts was created in 1965, most states started developing their state arts agencies because there was federal money that was flowing to the states.
Oh, very interesting. So when we use the term the arts, what does that encompass?
So we're talking about all artistic disciplines, from visual art, music, theater, performance, dance, literature, across all disciplines and all stages of careers or organizational development.
So does that include sculptors, blacksmiths?
Absolutely, yes. And so we have a program, and you mentioned blacksmithing, we have a program that focuses exclusively on traditional and heritage arts. And so blacksmithing is actually a traditional art form that is often passed down from generation to generation. That makes it a traditional art form. And so we have blacksmiths on our traditional arts roster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what specifically does the council do? How do they work with these different art programs?
So we have a variety of programs and services that we offer. Probably the most public thing we do is grant making. And so we're funded by the federal government. We receive a significant partnership grant from the National Endowment for the Arts and an appropriation in the state budget. And with those monies, we make grants. And so our grant making is around $550,000, $560,000 a year. And those grants go to a wide variety of organizations and programs and individual artists. So we provide operating support for arts and cultural organizations. We provide project support for community-based arts and cultural programming that people can access at little to no charge. We fund artist residencies in schools, youth arts programs that are happening outside of the traditional school day, arts and health projects. We're integrating the arts into healthcare settings of all kinds.
Hitchcock, I saw that.
Dartmouth Hitchcock and others. We're doing a lot of work with behavioral health agencies now that are focusing on the opioid crisis and the behavioral health crisis.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. When we also provide funding for traditional arts apprenticeships. And so these monies match an apprentice with a master artist to learn that traditional art form.
So like a mentor program?
Yes, sort of like that, yes. And then we also, this year, are bringing back a grant program for individual artists called Artist Entrepreneurial Grants, small grants to help individual artists access programs, services that will help them build their careers.
Okay, that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff, and that's just a piece of what we do.
Really?
Yeah, the grant making is probably the most public piece. But then we provide all sorts of services and supports to organizations, teaching artists, artists of all disciplines at all stages of their careers. So we do a lot of professional development in arts education and arts and health for teaching artists and educators and healthcare practitioners or administrators. In our arts education and arts and health programs, we provide, I guess you'd call it, organizational consulting to mostly small emerging nonprofit organizations to help them, arts organizations, to help them with mission and vision and organizational development, board governance, that kind of work. We're constantly answering the phone and directing artists and answering questions that people might have about other grant opportunities or accessing certain things in the community. We do a lot of matchmaking. I often say that one of the things we're best at is matchmaking. So we'll connect artists and organizations. We'll connect organizations to each other to help them work together or learn from each other. We really look at trying to promote best practices in organizational management and services to the artistic community. So we're doing a lot of that all the time. It's a very, very busy place, and there are only 7 of us.
What? For all of that?
Yeah. 7 employees.
My gosh. I have jumped into the deep end of the pool here. I thought I had some very basic questions for you. Now you've expanded that, and I almost don't know where to go. So I deal a lot with stage theater.
Yes.
And so when I use the term performing arts or arts, I normally just go right there.
Yeah.
I didn't see a whole lot on your website that deals with stage or theater. Mm-hmm. Is that because there's a different program that would help those kinds of folks? Or
actually, those organizations are helped sort of and performing artists throughout all of our programs. So we provide operating support for a number of professional theaters.
Before you go too
Peterborough
far,
Players.
When you say operating support, what does that mean?
So nonprofit organizations have to live and they have to operate,
right.
And we provide grants, and it's a very competitive grant program for unrestricted support. And so the maximum amount an organization like the Peterborough Players could get from us each year is $15,000. And that is unrestricted support, and we call it operating support because it's not specific to a particular program that the organization might be running. And so they can use it in any number of ways.
It's not dedicated to set building.
That's right. Yeah. And so we support a number of theater, music, kind of performing arts organizations with operating support. Right here in Concord, we support the Concord Community Music School, Capital Center for the Arts.
Really?
Yeah. The League of New Hampshire Craftsmen. So there are a number of organizations that we support in that way.
I had no idea you were even out there.
Well, we are a very well-kept secret, and that's something that we've really been trying to remedy. When I go out and I talk to people, if I go to Rotary or some other organization, give a talk, I do a lot of leadership arts days. The first question I ask is, how many people in the room before today knew that there was a state agency dedicated to the arts? And maybe a few hands go up because people just don't realize that we're here. And we're providing services and grants all over the state, and so there's an audience that is very well aware of our existence. Mm-hmm. But in the larger world, sometimes people just don't realize it.
Yeah, I know that a lot of theater groups struggle financially.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a tremendous resource.
Yes, yes. And so through our general project grant category, we've supported Theater Kapow. There are a number of theater programs that we've supported, as well as dance programming, music programming of all kinds. So on the performing arts side, we're doing a lot. Very often what happens in state arts agencies and often regional arts agencies, what seems to get the most play and seems to be the most visible is the visual arts side. And so that's something that we've really been working on, is reaching out. And so we're very focused on dance right now because there's an incredible renaissance of dance occurring in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Just go to the Capitol Center for the Arts sometime when there's a dance recital or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we're thinking about all of those things. We're also very involved in efforts around the creative economy and promoting the impact of arts and culture on the state's economy. And so that's a big part of what we're doing now. We were able, a little over a year ago, to fill a vacant position which had been unfunded previously. And so we were able to have it funded. So we filled a vacant position, and that person is doing a lot of work on the creative economy and really developing relationships with economic development, planning organizations, community organizations, municipalities, to really encourage municipalities around the state to really think about including the arts in their master planning and also in their economic and community development.
This is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, really, I'm taken aback.
I mean, this is big business in New Hampshire. If you look at the nonprofit sector, which is what we always sort of traditionally think about as the arts, but then you add the for-profit creative sector, you think about the impact of that. And so there are creative businesses, right? Advertising firms, architecture, landscape architecture, graphic design, web design, game design. That's all part of the creative economy on the for-profit sector. And then if you add to that work that's happening in the private sector on behalf of arts and culture. So think about the construction that's going on at the new Bank of New Hampshire stage right here on Main Street.
Right.
For a for-profit construction firm is doing this work. That's part of the creative economy. And so that gets figured in to the value of the creative economy in the state. And the federal government has estimated that economy is worth $2.4 billion a year
in our state,
in New Hampshire.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it's very, very, very large. And it's a huge number, and it's a difficult one for us to kind of unpack. But the creative economy is really, really booming in New Hampshire. Think about the maker spaces that are popping up all over the state. Yeah. They're part of that, and they're serving as incubators for small creative businesses to grow.
Wow. This is, I can't even imagine what your day must be like. I really cannot.
It's fascinating. I mean, I have to say, no 2 days are the same. We're always finding out about something that's going on that we didn't know about. We try to be out in the world as much as possible. We're all on the road a lot. But we find out about music festivals or activities that are happening in small towns, new creative ventures, new for-profit businesses. And I feel like we're just starting to touch the tip of the for-profit side of the creative economy.
I got to get my head around this because literally this is so much more. You're this hidden gem that's sitting out there. I had really no idea at all. I saw your website, which, by the way, does not do you justice.
Oh, well, we're working on that. I joke that our website's stuck in 1998.
That's the truth. It has a few little links on it, but it does nothing about what you're talking about today.
That's right. And so we're working on that, actually. And, this is state government, and even a small state like New Hampshire, there are lots of steps and things move very slowly. And so we are starting to work on our new website.
This is encouraging. It really is. I know a lot of small theater owners, theater group, and they're always scraping for a dime, just maybe so they can get a prop, or they got to go to Salvation Army because they can't get anything. This is really good news.
Yeah.
This is fascinating news. This is just mind-blowing. Let's go over a little bit of the process.
Sure.
How does a group approach you? And that doesn't have to be theater, but it could be dance, can be music, but some arts group. How do they approach you? And then what does the process, if you could walk us through what they can expect, what kind of paperwork, what kind of time frame are we looking at? I mean,
Sure.
Is this something where they're going to fill out a form and then 3 years down the road they'll get some kind of acknowledgement?
No. So all of our grant programs, except the operating support, operate on an annual basis.
Okay. What's the fiscal year?
Our fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th.
Thank you.
And so we are in the midst right now of application processes and panel meetings for grants that will be funded in the next fiscal year.
2020.
2020. So fiscal 20 starts July 1st. And so we're in the process now, and we've got probably one more grant deadline coming up, and that's the general project grant, and that deadline is in July for projects between November 1st of 2019 and October 31st of 2020. Okay. And so we're in the process. So usually in late January, we will announce and release all of the guidelines for the upcoming fiscal year's grants. The operating support is a program we call Public Value Partnerships, and that operates on a 2-year basis. So every 2 years, and it goes with the biennium, the state budget process. So we have applications that have already come in for that program, and that panel will meet at the end of June. So we release our guidelines
in January.
Usually late January, early February. We do a lot of traditional media and lots of social media around getting the word out. We have a very large email mailing list. We try to get the word out as best we can for all of these grant programs. And so we also provide a lot of assistance to applicants as they're going through the process, which is a wonderful benefit that not enough people take advantage of. So let's say your theater company wants to apply for a general projects grant for your season, your next season, let's say your summer season of 2020. Mm-hmm. And so you have the opportunity to send us a draft of your narrative, and we will read it and offer feedback, a draft of your budget so that you can get feedback on that. And right up until 2 weeks before the deadline, we will review your materials.
For free.
For free, absolutely. This is very unusual. So I came here from New York State, where I led a regional arts services agency that re-granted money for the state of New York through the New York State Council on the Arts. My agency got about $250,000 a year from the State Arts Council, most of which we re-granted out, but we had several other programs that we applied for, and there was no assistance like what we offer here, and so somebody would reach out to you if there was something wrong with your budget when you submitted it, but there was no opportunity to have anybody read your narrative ahead of time to make sure that you were hitting all the points. And so because we want to give away this money.
This is priceless. This is priceless.
Yeah, we want to give away this money, and not enough people take advantage of that benefit.
Do you people hear that? Not enough people take advantage. This is incredible.
Yeah, so right up until the 2 weeks before the deadline for each program, applicants can reach out to us. We'll go through and offer suggestions and assistance. And then the application is submitted. We use an online form. We use a company called Submittable. It's a very easy form to fill out. There are fields to fill out. There's an upload area for certain documents. So you upload your narrative and your
PDF,
budget
you
and
can
PDFs. Yep. and then once the deadline hits, the application closes, and then we process the applications, and we formulate our panels. So one of the things we're required to do is evaluate these grants through a peer panel process. And so we ask people from all over the state to sit on these grant panels to review the applications. Staff does not make the decisions.
Really?
Only one grant program, the Artist Entrepreneurial Grant Program, is an internal process. The rest are impaneled with peer panels.
Before we go too far, is this only for nonprofits we're talking about at this point?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Right now, only nonprofits can apply, except for artist entrepreneurial grants and the traditional arts apprenticeship. The artists apply.
Okay.
Nonprofits are schools, so schools will apply for the artist in residence grant program. But the nonprofit thing is something that people can sort of get around. So let's say you've got a small community theater group, and it's not incorporated as a nonprofit. If you can find a fiscal agent that is a nonprofit, that fiscal agent can submit the application on your behalf.
What?
So the fiscal agent will manage the money. But we have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers.
Sure.
And so that's why we have those restrictions.
Yeah.
So the panels will meet. The panels will.
And how are these people chosen? I'm sorry, I didn't mean
they're from all over the state, and we
are they
try.
Volunteers?
They do get a stipend to do this. We feed them.
Okay,
and
that's worth it.
and it can be these grant programs are very competitive. So we've got close to 40 applications for operating support. That panel will meet for 2 full days.
And just adjudicate these.
Yes. And so we have rubrics for each grant program, and so they evaluate the applications based on those rubrics, and then they rank them. And then we kind of figure out how much money we have for each program, and then we make the recommendations go to our full council. So the Arts Council is a gubernatorially appointed board because we're governed by a statute, and there are 15 people on the council. And so once the panels have made their decisions, then we submit those recommendations to the Arts Council, and the council has to approve them before we can either take the next step. So you know what New Hampshire government is like.
Government in general.
Any grant or contract over $10,000 has to go through the Executive Council. So we have a handful of those that need Executive Council approval as well.
Oh,
so, we always tell our grantees, you might be waiting 3 months to get your check.
Because of red tape.
But, and then there's paperwork on the back end of that. Yeah. There's a contract that everybody has to sign. It has to be notarized. The paperwork has to come back. And it's all on paper, that part of it.
What's the average size grant that goes out?
So our grants are relatively small. So the Public Value Partnership operating grants this year, the ceiling is $15,000 each year, and so we have a range.
Group?
Yeah, we have a range of those. So we have some that are only getting $4,000 or $5,000. A lot of organizations don't ask for the full amount.
Why?
Because they don't need it.
Oh my God!
They may not need it. And because we have limited funding, sometimes we have to make some hard decisions about who's going to get, who's going to get what, more or less. That's right. And that depends on the strength of the application. And so those grants are the largest grants, and that's the largest piece of the grant making. The other grants, arts education, arts and health, youth arts projects, general projects, those are matching grant programs, and the maximum that you can get from that program is only $4,500.
Only? That's huge to a small group.
Yes. They're small grants, but they go a long way.
And they can do this each year?
Yes. If you're getting operating support, the only other program you can apply for is arts and health, because that's an very underserved population. But we try to spread the money as far and wide as we can. It's really important. And it's amazing how organizations leverage this grant funding. So it really is like the good housekeeping seal of approval, right? So you're vetted by the State Arts Council, the State Arts Agency. People really use that to leverage other funding, whether it's other foundations, whether it's private giving, corporate giving, and so there are a number of.
This is a world I know nothing about.
It's extraordinary. In fiscal 18, our $560,000 worth of grant making had an impact of over 40 million.
What? How many times is that? It's like 100 times? What is that?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary return on investment. It leveraged 40 million in organizational and project spending.
This is okay.
So it's not a hard process. I always say that grant writing is 90% following the instructions and answering all of the questions.
Well, there's a lot of people who get really scared about filing grants.
And I think our process is relatively simple. Certainly compared to the process that I went through in New York. I think our applications are very understandable. The questions are reasonable, and it's tough for small organizations. Larger organizations, some of them, they employ grant writers.
Right, I know.
Who have that kind of expertise. That's why we provide the help.
That's interesting.
That's really part of it.
Okay. Now I would pull us apart a bit. So they apply, they fill out the questionnaires, they
write their narrative.
Yeah. What type of questions can they expect to find? What type of answers are you looking for?
So each program is a little bit different. But in terms of, for instance, in terms of the operating support, we really want these organizations to make the case as to their public value. How are they impacting the community that they serve?
I love this.
And so that's really important because we're very, very focused on diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. And we really want to see that organizations that we fund are reaching out to the broadest population. Yeah. And I think this is the imperative of public funding is to break down barriers to access, both in terms of actual participation and also consumption of the arts. And that's what public funding is all about. That's why the National Endowment for the Arts was created in the first place. That's why the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts was created, was to break down barriers to access. Because if we think about the traditional arts that we always think about,
right.
There are a lot of people that can't afford to buy a ticket.
I know.
Or can't afford lessons. Or, and so we really want those organizations to demonstrate their public value.
I don't mean to stop you.
No.
You if I don't stop, I'm never going to get these open. So let's say, for instance, there's a group that wants to have an event. They could use that money to subsidize ticket sales?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Or pay the artist. And so in our general projects grant category, the deadline is coming up in July, that grant category supports projects that really bring the arts to people and communities at little or no cost. So think about, for instance, for several years, we supported a summer concert series in Jaffrey and the applicant organization was the Downtown Development Organization, Team Jaffrey. And so these were free concerts on the green. And so they used those funds to pay the artists who were going to perform.
Oh, that's remarkable.
And so that's what we're looking for, really, especially with that program, is how do you reach the broadest audience you can, and how do you make it absolutely accessible? And what I think what I think can happen in situations like that, and I think these concerts on the green are a really good example, is that anybody can go to them. And so if there's a string quartet playing on the green, you're in your shorts and your T-shirt and you've got your kid and the stroller, and you can just walk up and listen. You don't have to worry about how you're going to dress. You don't have to worry about how much you're going to have to pay for a ticket. You don't have to worry that you really aren't sure how to behave in a concert hall. You can just enjoy the music. And very often, just breaking that barrier will allow people to think, wow, I want to hear more of this. Maybe I should go to a Symphony New Hampshire concert.
This is mind-blowing, Ginnie. I'm so grateful you came in. This is amazing to me.
Yeah, this is why I do this work. This is what it's all about. And if we think about some of these other programs, like the Artist in Residence programs in schools, these are concentrated periods of time where students get to work with professional artists.
Can you define the term artist here for us?
Sure.
You're not just talking painting.
No. This is musicians, performers, visual artists of all kinds, traditional artists, dancers, all different kinds of artists. And we actually have a roster of artists that we've vetted for arts and education. So these artists, they apply, and it's a yearly application process. They apply, they are reviewed and interviewed by a peer panel. Their work is evaluated, and their qualifications to work in school settings are evaluated. And then once they're on the roster, schools can use that roster to choose artists knowing that they've already been vetted and that they're qualified to do this work.
Gold mine.
Yeah. And so students create all sorts of work. They might write plays, create dances, make mosaics. It's really the possibilities are unlimited.
So a school would look at this roster and say, okay, we want a playwright. Come and teach these children to. How is that person? Are you paying them to go in? Are you?
So that's what the grant
giving them
does.
a stipend?
Yeah, that's what the grant does. So the school applies for the grant, and again, it's a matching grant. So the school has to come up with the other half, and then they pay the artist. It's a paid gig. Always a paid gig, and artists should always be paid.
Thank you.
And so each one of these projects is different. So, for instance, if they want to bring a playwright in, they might be working on the 4th grade New Hampshire history curriculum and deciding that they want to write a play about some aspect of New Hampshire history. And so this is integrating the arts into the academic day and into that academic subject, so that students can learn about history in a completely different, non-boring way.
Yeah. This is better than what does your dad do for work today?
Absolutely.
This is crazy.
Yeah. And so,
Now, how long would they be? Is that up to the artist in the school? Where they're going once a week, once a month, once a whatever?
Up to the artist and the school. So some of these projects are multiple days. It might be a whole week. It might be an entire school project, throughout the entire elementary school. Or it might be, specific grades. And so there's a lot of flexibility in how schools develop those programs. And I think what's really important about these arts education grants is both the Artist in Residence program and the Youth Arts Project grants provide engagement in the arts beyond what the schools can offer on a regular basis. And we're always fighting with, school districts curtailing arts education when they're trying to cut budgets, and that's unfortunate. And these programs are not meant to replace what the schools should be doing, but they provide an immersive experience that students won't get during the regular school day, and that many students couldn't afford to get outside of school.
Right.
So that's really
what's your most popular type of program? What do you fund the most, or what do you have the most requests for?
I think probably the most highly subscribed grant program is the General Projects Grant category for those community-based arts and cultural activities. We spend the most money in the operating support category, public value partnerships. Probably over half of our grant making is in that operating support category. But the most applications come in the general projects.
Is that because
category.
people don't know what they should be filing for, or is it just the way things fall out?
I think it's the way things fall out. There are, in the operating support category, the organization has to have been in existence for a certain period of time. It has to have a full-time executive director for a certain period of time. So a lot of organizations automatically don't qualify. But the general projects category is a wonderful category to nurture emerging organizations that aren't ready yet for that big operating support grant, but to nurture them and to help them refine their programming. Yeah, it's amazing.
It
Absolutely
is
amazing.
I'm stunned.
And this year, we are hopeful that we will see an increase in our state funding directly in our grant category. So the governor proposed and the House approved a $282,000 increase in our non-federal grants line.
So it goes to the Senate after that?
And so it's in the Senate now. And
Senators,
talk to you,
get
Senator.
up your butt.
But we're feeling very, very hopeful. And this is the first major increase in our funding in a generation.
This is fascinating.
So, and some of that funding we will be using to hopefully grow our arts and health program and also start making some creative communities, creative economy grants for creative placemaking, community planning, those kinds of things. So we're still working on some of that. Our arts and health program, we're really looking at the priorities that the state has articulated in terms of behavioral health, the opioid crisis, and there is significant research documenting the positive impact that arts and cultural activity can have on recovery and long-term recovery and on improving health in general.
So what would you like to see in that area, in the arts and health? What, if you had a perfect scenario, who would walk through the door and you're like, yes, we can definitely.
So I think from my perspective, and this is just me, but we've been thinking a lot about behavioral health and opioids, and I would like to see the organizations that are involved in this hub and spoke model to talk with us about how they can more fully integrate the arts into the work that they're doing on the front lines. And we're having conversations with HHS. So, we're having these interdepartmental conversations about how we can work more fully together. And so that's something I think we'll be working on in the next few years is looking at developing a plan for the agencies to work more closely together so that we can add some of our funding to the federal funding and the state HHS funding to really leverage solid arts programming in these facilities.
So would this be to get these folks involved in I don't know how to phrase this, performing, making, creating?
It could be all
idea?
of those things. So, for instance, a couple of years ago, we funded a project at Dartmouth-Hitchcock in their inpatient behavioral health unit, and they were working on a mask. It was a mask project, and it was actually an adaptation of a federal veterans project. The National Endowment for the Arts has had a relationship with Walter Reed Hospital for a long time, and they've been doing a lot of research on the positive impact that artistic activity can have on veterans who are suffering from PTSD. And so there was a project that they did with making masks The inside of the mask is who you are inside that you might not show. The outside of the mask is who you project to the world, and then there's a lot of dialoguing around how those things are integrated. And so Dartmouth had a similar project where they worked with people on their inpatient behavioral health unit, and the results were extraordinary.
Really?
The artwork that these people made was extraordinary, but also the progress that they made in their treatment was extraordinary. So when we look at these arts and health projects, we are really asking the applicants also about how they're evaluating the effectiveness of the work that they're doing. That's
going to be a tough measurement.
It is a very tough measurement. It really is, and a lot of this, it's difficult to quantify. And so, but there are, especially in healthcare, there are benchmarks of improvement, and that don't have anything to do with the arts. But there's a lot of research now being done on the effectiveness of the arts in terms of health and well-being.
Yeah.
And, we're thinking about creative aging and how the arts can be more fully integrated into senior centers and all sorts of
old folks like me.
Yeah. And me too. So, I think the arts, we think about this across the lifetime and across communities.
As I'm getting older, I'm more and more concerned about my mental health because it can deteriorate.
Absolutely.
Poor habits, poor eating, whatever, can all have those effects on it. And so I can see where this would be a wonderful program, because if you can stimulate the mind and that you get some neuroplasticity going there, this could be a really wonderful functioning program to fight Alzheimer's a bit, maybe some dementia.
Absolutely.
Just wear and tear on the brain after 60, 70 years of abuse.
Absolutely. And we have for several years provided funding to Easter Seals for the Alzheimer's Cafe that they operate at the Courier Museum of Art.
Is there no facet of life you people are involved in?
So, well, that's the beauty of the arts. The arts are everywhere.
Yes. Man, I'm going to jump out of my seat.
And so, and that program is incredibly successful.
What are they doing there?
So they're doing all sorts of things. So they're making art. They are listening to music. They are writing poetry. There's a whole host of activity. There are a number of Alzheimer's cafes all around the state.
Really?
So, yeah. There's one at the Children's Museum in Dover.
What?
That we sort of have peripherally supported through the operating grant that they received.
I've got to get out of my cave more often. This is crazy.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's a terrific model because it's not only beneficial to the person who has Alzheimer's or dementia. It's also beneficial for the caregiver who goes with that person because they participate also.
Wow.
And so there's a little bit of respite. There's an opportunity for creative growth. It's one of those situations where I think everybody wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
And so for the Courier or the Children's Museum, it also gets people in the door.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
they'll go into a gallery and they'll look at pieces of work and have conversations about the artwork as well.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, so I think we are looking at doing more of this kind of work, with healthcare organizations. Several years ago, we funded a project at Concord Hospital, which was providing music in the NICU to babies that were born addicted, and the recovery time was shorter.
What?
Music at the bedside.
Wow.
Yeah.
Music at the bedside.
Mm-hmm.
What a great name.
Yeah, and so we also have a roster of artists who are qualified to work in healthcare settings. And that's another juried roster. And so these people apply, they're interviewed, and then that's a vetted list that healthcare entities can use to find artists to work in their.
I am overwhelmed. I am really overwhelmed. When I looked at your website and I thought, okay, this is going to be kind of boring. They deal with folklore and some poetry. I don't know where we're going to go with this. Mm-hmm. You are so much more than that. You need to get your web designers on this quickly because...
Oh, yeah, we're working on it. We are definitely working on it.
This is a pleasure to find this out.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I mean, you know, and the programming is so varied. So we also operate a program every year called Poetry Out Loud, which is a partnership with the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation. And it's a recitation contest for high school students. And the NEA, it's been in existence, I think, 14 years now, and we've been doing it the entire time, every year. And the NEA has developed this extraordinary curriculum and a whole database of poems. And so students work with their teachers. So it starts on the school level. And students work with their teachers. They choose poems to memorize. And then they compete. They recite,
like a spelling bee?
They sort of, but they recite the poems. And so we coordinate this in New Hampshire, and we receive a grant from the NEA to do that. Close to 10,000 students participate in this program every year. Yeah, that's actually more students than those who participate in competitive sports.
This is amazing.
So it starts at the school level. And the schools have their competitions. Then the winners and usually runners-up of those competitions go to a regional competition. And then we have the finals at the State House every year in March.
In
Representative Hall. And it's. I had never experienced this before I came here. And the first year, that was 2015, was my first Poetry Out Loud. I just sat there and wept. It was so extraordinary. And the skills that students receive and build, you know, from this process, you know, just poise, self-assurance, it's extraordinary. And then the winner of the state competition goes to a national competition.
Oh my God!
And that's in Washington. And you know, and it's absolutely amazing. And so we have about 40 schools every year participate in Poetry Out Loud, and we would like to expand that number, but you know, that's a resource issue.
And so, what is your role in that? How do you?
So we coordinate it.
Okay.
So we work with all 40 schools. And we actually have a consultant who works with us to help with some of the coordination. But we work with all. We work from the recruitment of the schools. We work with the teachers that are coordinating the school contests. We organize the regional contests, and then we organize the finals.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and all of this is free to the schools?
Absolutely. And the curriculum that goes along with it is great. We also, in the last few years, have been employing poets, New Hampshire poets, to provide coaching to the schools that want that coaching. So they'll go in and coach the kids on how to recite, because it's not like a poetry slam. So recitation is more reserved, and so schools that want to avail themselves of a coach can contact us, and we've got a cadre of poets that we'll send out to coach the students. So it's a phenomenal program.
The resources you have available, this is stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Yeah, it is, and we are really lucky to do this work, and I'm consistently amazed at what our little agency is able to do with such a small staff. Our team is absolutely extraordinary.
I can imagine. It has to be almost overwhelming, isn't it?
There are some days when it is. Yeah, you know, especially during Poetry Out Loud season, because our grant our grant cycle is going at that time too. And so,
Double
you know,
duty.
that's right, you know, and Poetry Out Loud very often is an all hands on deck sort of thing. Everybody's involved in one way or another.
It's that big, huh?
Yeah, you know, and so, it's our team's doing a lot.
Yeah. Oh, man. Are you familiar with the Veterans in Performing Arts out in Portsmouth?
Yes.
Do you work with them?
Yes.
It's a great program.
Yep.
I can see where that would-
We've done some work with them, and we're actually very interested through our Arts and Health program to be doing more work with veterans.
Yeah,
So
I
we've
imagine.
funded projects at the Veterans Home, and and in other places, and we're working now on a possible collaboration with a couple of organizations for a new project, which I can't really talk about yet, but we're hoping to be able to bring that to life soon. Because this is another area that is folks that are really underserved, and trying to find ways to work with those folks. The Courier Museum has had a program for active duty service people and their families.
I didn't know that.
And they make art together, and that's a project that we have supported as well.
They make art like what?
Oh, they'll make paintings, they'll make collages, they do a lot of art making as a family.
And your role in that is what?
We help fund that, to pay the artists who work with the families.
So do you pay for the supplies as well, so they don't have to?
Well, the organization, the Courier has applied for, they apply for a grant, and then they use that in different ways. Yeah, so
there should be more groups trying to be more innovative and more creative, and then approaching you.
That's right.
With these wonderful ideas.
That's right. They absolutely should, because even if we don't have funds for a grant, we have experience and technical assistance that we can give, and we can help organizations build programs. So we've got that type of expertise. So we do a lot of assistance with program development. If somebody comes to us and says, I want to do X, how do I start?
Yeah.
We have people on our staff that can help them build that project. And it's all free.
I'm dumbfounded.
This is a service that we provide.
So some group or some individual can have an idea that they think may work, and you're willing to set aside time for them to answer their questions, to mentor them through a process, help them decide whether or not the project is feasible, and even if you can't help them, you have resources to direct them to.
Yes. Oh yeah, we get calls all the time. I need funding for this, that, or the other thing. Where should I go? And so we will suggest, well, there's this family foundation that's really interested in that, or the charitable foundation might be interested in this. And, and so we will direct people. And that's what I said earlier on. We're matchmakers. We're trying to connect artists, organizations, and the public.
How are you flying under the radar? There are people dying for this information. Not dying,
Well,
but
I think...
I mean, there are groups who are crying for help. This is fascinating.
Yeah. And I think this is the struggle that not only our little state arts agency, but state arts agencies in general
This is a shame that no one knows about you.
People don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
And we really impress upon our grantees how important it is for them to tell their audiences that they're supported by the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts.
You need to invest your money in PR. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, and we're hoping that in this next cycle, we will have a little bit more federal money to be able to do some more marketing. It's hard. We're a very small agency with a very small budget, our annual budget's only about $1.3 million. It's very small compared to, other state agencies and certainly other state arts agencies.
Yeah.
So we do have limited funds, and our mandate really is to try to get as much of that money out into the world.
I having a problem with that. I mean, do you give it away eventually? Does it all get out?
It all gets out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it all gets out there, and unfortunately, we can never fund all of the requests that come to us.
Yeah.
And some of those categories, the general projects category is really competitive.
Oh, bad.
Very, very competitive. And so, and that's why we provide the help. And hopefully we'll have extra funds going into 2020 to be able to really to grow some of these programs.
It's funny. Some of these groups, just $500 is a lot to them.
No, that's right, and it can make a huge difference in their ability to raise money from other sources
or survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
In some cases.
Yeah. And so, we really want to see artists paid. That's very, very important. And probably in the project grant categories, what we're really looking for. And then in the operating support, we really want to see the difference that the organization's making in their community, that public value.
Wow.
It's good work.
Yeah, no, it's better than good work. It's better, and it deserves much more attention.
Yeah,
I
think so. And I think people don't realize that they are encountering the arts every day, all the time, and I think that's part of the problem we have in communicating the importance of the work we do, because people still think that the arts are something separate, and they also think about the arts in a very limited, very traditional way. And the arts are so much bigger than just, Capitol Center for the Arts and the music school and the museum. There's so much interesting stuff that's going on in New Hampshire, from Slam for Your Die to experimental theater.
Wait, Slam for Your Die? What is that?
Oh, it's a poetry slam organization. You've never heard of that?
No. Oh, no, of course not. No. Until you come in the door, I don't hear about half of any of this stuff.
Oh, they're absolutely extraordinary. They've been going on for years. They have a weekly slam, usually Thursday nights. It's at a bar on the Mill Yard in Manchester. Used to be Millie's Tavern. It's called something else now. And so there's an open mic. They usually have a professional slam poet to sort of headline. And it's absolutely amazing.
Okay, well, hold on. Maybe it's my age. What is a slam poet?
So slam poetry is performance poetry that sometimes is composed right on the spot in front of the mic.
This reminds me of those old beatnik days with the coffee shop.
No, absolutely. It's very similar, and it's usually really performed.
Are they all wearing berets and smoking cigarettes?
Not quite, but there's a wide range of ages involved. The creativity is astounding, and it's participatory, and that's something, again, that we're looking at very carefully, because particularly in younger generations are very interested in actually participating in the art. So community dances, contra dance, is huge in New Hampshire. And in fact, we work with the Division of Travel and Tourism to develop a brochure that lists, it's a dance trail, that lists all of the community contra dances all over the state.
I'm blown away.
And because people want to participate in these activities. They don't want to be just passive consumers. They really want to participate. And this is something that I feel like we're really starting to think about a lot, is looking for those kinds of projects.
These are edgy. This is amazing.
So, so think about the trainings that Theater Kapow does.
Yeah.
Those are open to the public. Anybody can go. It's very inexpensive to participate.
Right.
And you don't have to be a professional actor. that the benefits you get from those kinds of trainings can serve you in everyday life.
Right.
I mean, your training as an actor has allowed you to do this podcast.
Correct.
I did a lot of acting and performing in my youth, and that's helped me in my public speaking. So, that participatory nature is something that I'm very interested in. And we see it in arts education and arts and health. Those, and the apprenticeships, those kinds of things are all about, individuals making the art and not passively consuming it. But want to see more of that. Portsmouth Music and Arts Center gets an operating grant from us every year, and they have started now live streaming their recitals and performances right from PMAC.
Wow.
And so I was watching one last night, and it was amazing. It was a singer-songwriter workshop, and they were having their final recital, and the music was extraordinary. And so, that participatory nature is really, really important. That, when we make something ourselves, we participate in something ourselves, we gain so much. And that's the intrinsic value.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that enough anymore because our policymakers seem more interested in the economic impact.
Yeah, we've sterilized the whole...
Yeah,
we forget the psychological, the spiritual, the emotional part of all that this requires.
Absolutely.
Or that it generates or
Absolutely.
fosters.
And the difference it can make in people's lives. So, Furniture Masters, New Hampshire Furniture Masters, and they're somebody you should absolutely talk to. They have had a program for a number of years in the men's prisons. And these men are mentored by master furniture makers, and the work that they make is amazing. And there has been zero recidivism in the men that have participated in this program. Once they're out of prison, they don't go back. Zero.
Have you followed up with any of them? Do they continue on in that vein?
They do.
Because they've found something that...
They do.
Okay.
They do. They continue doing this work and making careers out of it. And Furniture Masters has a lot of data, going back. And now they are about to start a program in the new women's prison.
Wow.
And so, these programs are also incredibly important. And in fact, we fund some prison-related projects through our grant programs. We fund a project called Bach with Verse that is taking music and poetry, primarily poetry, into the prisons and jails in New Hampshire, which is just amazing. We have a partnership with the Family Resource Center, the prison's Family Resource Center, and fund a project where inmates and their children make art together.
Oh, that's special.
And and so that's through our arts and health program too. And so because there's a lot of research that shows that people who are incarcerated individuals who participate in the arts have better outcomes once they leave incarceration. So the arts they're everywhere.
Yeah, you have your tentacles everywhere. Right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You have to be proud too of what you do. You're so proud.
Absolutely, very proud. But there's still more. There's always more to do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Even with all the slam poetry, all those quirky, crazy things, there's still more to do.
Yeah.
I mean, what's next? Bowling for penguins? I mean, I don't know what.
But I think that people are so creative, and the arts are always changing and evolving, and I think for us as a small state and a state arts agency, part of our mission is to try to be on that leading edge and to find those things, promote those things, and encourage participation.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm so glad you came by.
Me too. Anytime I get to talk about this stuff, it's
you can tell it's your passion.
Absolutely,
and it
love
should
it.
be.
Absolutely love it.
You must see so many different things come through your door.
We do.
There must be times when you scratch your head and say, "That's crazy." but brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I love reading the grant applications.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Because there always are a handful that are unique and pushing a boundary. And I'm a visual artist that likes to push boundaries, and I like to see other artists and organizations riding those edges.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for our communities, and and organizations kind of taking steps to broaden their audiences, grow their audiences, or be more involved in their communities in unusual ways.
Yeah. What's the number one reason that something might get turned down? What do you find is missing most often?
Usually the applicant hasn't fully articulated what they really want to do.
Okay,
Yeah. Or they haven't included, or they haven't answered all of the questions.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's 90% following the instructions and answering all of the questions. But that's usually the issue, and sometimes that can be hard. And I always tell people, and actually Cassandra Mason on our staff, who's our chief grants officer and deputy director, she does a lot of workshops where she's on grant writing. And actually she and Katie Collins from Capital Center for the Arts have a wonderful partnership, and they do these grant writing workshops.
I didn't know that.
The nonprofit, the annual nonprofit summit, and they just did one at the Governor's Volunteer Summit for Volunteers.
Yeah.
And but they always say that I think that is the most difficult thing, is articulating what you're going to do, and they always say you don't have to use flowery language or even a lot of language. Be very, very clear in what you want to do, what it requires, what you think the outcomes and benefits will be to those who participate in it. And if you can do those things, then chances are you've written a competitive application. But generally that's why.
Yeah. So I imagine, have you ever seen some projects come through that you're like, oh, this would be a beautiful project. Please redo your application. We would love to.
Well, that's right. And I think that's what's so hard. We've seen applications come through that were not well written, that aren't funded, and then the organization applies the next year, and they've given us the exact same application, even though we provide feedback. We provide feedback after the panel meets and the council makes its decisions. We provide feedback to every single applicant about the panel, about their comments.
That's impressive.
And we invite those people to take advantage of the assistance that we offer.
Why would you go back the next year and just do the same thing then?
I don't know.
Are you brain dead?
I don't know.
You must tear your hair out down there.
Yeah, that's why I have so little.
My gosh. So grant writing workshops. So what are your other divisions inside the council? You said you had 7? No, you have 7 people.
We have 7 people. So we have an arts education coordinator, Julianne Gaduri,
Okay.
A traditional arts coordinator, Kayla Schweitzer, our chief grants officer, Cassandra Mason, who's been handling arts and health, and also the Percent for Art program, which I didn't mention. The state,
I saw that on your website.
Yeah.
What is that?
So the state enacted a statute many, many, many years ago that 0.5% of the value of any construction of any new state building or significant renovation has to be set aside for public art.
Really?
Yeah. Many states have programs like this. And so we coordinate that program. So we're in the midst of several projects. So think about the Fish at Hampton Beach.
Yeah.
Those were installed through a Percent for Art project.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so there's Percent for Art artwork all over the state. And in fact, many years ago, several years ago, the Concord Monitor, Clay Wirestone, before he left, the Monitor had a project where he was cataloging all of the percent for artwork all around the state, and they created a website, a very interactive website, that mapped all of the artworks. There were pictures of the artworks, which they got from us, and the website no longer exists, but I have all the files. And so when we redo our website, we are hoping to integrate those files into our new website, because there's work all over the state. So we're working right now with the Merrimack County Courthouse project, Jeunesse Beach's new bathhouse. There are projects all over the place. So Cassie helps coordinate that project, and then Lisa Burke McCoy, who came on last year, is coordinating our Creative Communities project and creative economy work, and she'll also be handling arts and health. Carrie Johnson on our staff is the curatorial assistant, and her job is to manage the state's art collection.
The state art collection?
Yeah.
The paintings that are in every building?
Yep, that's right. So she facilitates that and works with those building managers and others to get work repaired, to do all sorts of things. She was instrumental in getting the artwork repaired after the break-in in the State House a couple of years ago, because there was some damage to a couple of paintings. And so that's her job. And so her position lives in our division. And then we have an incredible project assistant, Emily Killinger, who works across all of our programs and assists us with everything.
My gosh. So let's get some of the basic stuff out of the way. Where you're located and how do people contact you?
So we are in Concord. We're at 19 Pillsbury Street. We're in the Van McLeod building. It is the old hospital building on Pillsbury Street. We're downstairs, and Historical Resources is upstairs in that building. And the easiest way to reach us is via our Stuck in 1998 website at nh.gov/NHArts. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and we also have another Facebook page called NH Creates, New Hampshire Creates, which is for promotion of arts and culture all around the state.
So you have a deadline coming up. Is it really possible for anybody to still meet that deadline?
I think so, yeah. The general project grant deadline is in July. I can't off the top of my head remember the date, but there still is time. And so if you go onto the front page of our Stuck in 1998 website, there is a grants tab, and you can click on that, and then you can go right to the guidelines. And I would recommend that people look at guidelines for even the deadlines that have already passed, because the guidelines don't change a lot from year to year. And so you'll get a good idea of those grant categories just by looking at the guidelines.
Well, that's a great insight.
Yeah, everything's downloadable as PDFs. We have tutorials on how to use the online system. We try to make it as user-friendly as possible.
Is it easy for them to contact you by phone?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you
Yes.
probably don't want a million phone calls, but...
It is. And our main number is 271...
The pressure.
The pressure. But I can give mine. 271-8418 is me. And I can direct you to whoever you need to reach.
This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my gosh.
I really
thank you.
appreciate it.
And there you go. Another great one in the tank. That one's going off to the memorial. Have a great day.